My name is Charlie Gonzalez. I'm a former lawyer, former judge, a former member of Congress, and now I'm back where I started. I'm a lawyer again, and I'm a very old friend of Joe Gamez. The earliest days of knowing Joe were some of our most traumatic moments in life. We were law students. All we could think of is, let's hope we can pass, get our law degrees, get past the bar, and get out there and represent people. But one of the biggest concerns that Joe and I had would be, leaving class, would be, are our cars gonna start? Believe it or not, Joe is not one of those that brags about what he does. I think the satisfaction comes from doing it. You don't have to be recognized. You don't have to be lauded. It's just the good that you do. And listening to people and their stations in life and the circumstances and the fact that you can help them is, I think, what makes you. You don't have to run for office. You don't have to have a law degree. In whatever you do in life, you can help somebody. My son was born in April of 1974. He was premature and he had to spend 2 weeks in neonatal. Kind of a vigil, because you worry. Parents out there understand what I'm saying. And then one day, there was Joe. He came up on his own. He knew that my son Leo was there. And it was just an incredibly beautiful moment.
I imagine we met about September of 1970. We were both law students at St. Mary's University School of Law. What connected us was the fact that we both worked for Bexar County Legal Aid, and if I'm correct about the salary, it's about $1.25 an hour. We worked at a little office on General McMullen. We had a mentor who was our lead attorney. His name was Don McManus. And I think Joe and I learned a whole lot from Don McManus about how you manage people, how you take care of your clients, and how you manage an office, all the way down to keeping your desk pretty clean. There are very few people who were in our class that I still see practicing law in San Antonio today. So yeah, it took something special to make it 50 years.
I can remember when I first started practicing as a baby attorney, young, running around with all kinds of energy. I would be running from court to court to court, and there I'd see Mr. Gamez right there next to me. I would go to one court, I would see him. I would go to another court and I would see him. And then I would bounce over to the civil courthouse for an expunction or some sort of civil matter, and I would see Mr. Gamez there. Then off to municipal court to go handle some traffic tickets in the afternoon. And who would be there but Mr. Gamez? I can remember on a Christmas Eve one day, I had a client that was begging to get out of jail. And I ran over to the courthouse. It was a ghost town over there. But of course, who did I see walking down the hall but Mr. Gamez? I mean, the guy was incredible. Mr. Gamez, it's been a pleasure to stand beside you at the courthouse, to work beside you, to learn from you. You have made such an impression on not only myself, but so many lawyers my age, which would be younger lawyers. And I'm just very appreciative for our relationship.
For a long time, I knew who Mr. Joe Gamez was. He actually worked with my father as a young attorney. The first time I met him though, I had just gotten into UT Austin, and my dad shows up with Mr. Gamez to buy me some furniture for my first apartment. I think my dad wanted to make sure that I stayed in Austin and did not come back to San Antonio. To me, Joe is kind of like a gentle giant. That strength can be very gentle. And that's the way I see him. He's very much a gentleman. I can imagine Mr. Gamez still being a lawyer after so long and deciding I'm not gonna retire, but I'm gonna help these other younger lawyers. When I see him in the hallway now, I'll say, Gamez Law fights. I am very proud of him when I see it, because in my head, I'm thinking puro West Side, because he's from the West Side and he's representing. He's done wonderfully, and again, he's still giving back. Hey, Joe Gamez, every time I see you, you always say, when are you getting married? And for the last time, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not getting married, Mr. Gamez, no. Thank you.
I'm not sure exactly when I saw Joe the first time, but I remember being new, so I was trying to introduce myself to as many folks as I could.
But after a while, I realized Joe was a solid, stable figure. I could go and ask him questions and he would know the answers for me. And then even better, Joe would come up to me and find me sometimes and just ask me how I was doing. Joe invited me to a gala 6 years ago. And unbeknownst to me, he had also invited this lady there as well. It wasn't a setup, but we sat next to each other and talked, and now we're married. And it's Ida Rojas. And so she's a lawyer as well. And my wife and I, owe a lot to Joe and Carmen. And then they even threw us a engagement party when we got engaged. It was over at the Gamez's house. Joe and Carmen, my wife and I, Ida, we love you both. We're so sorry we're not able to come to your celebration of 50 years as a lawyer. We love you, and to 50 years more.
I met Joe when we were both in the state legislature in the mid-'80s. If you were in the House chamber, seated in the gallery, you see a lot of members seated, but you see a lot of members walking and talking to people, trying to gather votes. That was Joe Gamez. He contributes money to the food bank. He contributes money to organizations that deal with disabled children. He gives money everywhere. He's very generous. And you know, that says a lot about Joe and Carmen, his wife. Now that he's practiced 50 years, obviously a very, very successful lawyer has reaped the benefits of a successful law practice. Joe could take it easy, go about their business, not care about the community, not do anything for the community. That's not in their DNA. They're very compassionate persons who always want to give back, and I think he'll give back until his very last breath. He's always been a fighter, and obviously he hasn't stopped. And the community's blessed to have a Joe and Carmen Gamez. I am honored to be in your presence, in your family's presence, and we are grateful for everything you did, that you are who you are, and we're grateful that you have Carmen right beside you.
Our children went to school together at St. Anthony's Catholic Elementary School. I actually met Carmen before I met Joe because of our involvement with the school. I smile every time I see those signs, and I think, there's my friend. I know Joe loves practicing law, and it's an amazing thing to be able to do the thing that you love for such a long time and do it effectively as Joe has. What he's done for the community, what he's done for individuals that he's helped over the years, it's not a small thing. Just a Bible reference is you don't want your right hand to know what your left hand is doing, and you pray quietly in a dark room. That's Joe. He does the things that he does quietly. I'm very proud of Natalie to go to law school, and I can't imagine how proud Joe is to have her there. I know that he enjoys working with Joseph. It's a great kind of legacy that he's created, and they will be able to carry on for him after he's decided to retire.
You know, Joe will give you the shirt off his back. It's the fact that he knows where he came from, and he still wants to give back to the community, and that's very important. I mean, there's a lot of people that know where they came from but don't do this. You know, I don't think the earning is for himself, but it's to try to give back and to try to get other people to get a better opportunity in life. I think that's going to be his staple. It's going to be what they remember him by. Not that, oh, he won this big case, what he did for the community and how he helped people. I do make fun of him. I said, hey, Joe, you know, if you ever do have a DWI, you can just get on one of those buses. They'll know who you are. They'll probably just give you a ride home. Joe, make sure you enjoy your grandkids and your kids. You know, as well as I do, that's very important to you, and you need to spend more time with them.
I remember meeting Joe very well. I was in law school. I can't remember what year I was in, but I was so impressed by this man who came up to our classroom. But I was really impressed because Joe came up to me and started talking to me, and he gave me some really good advice that I try to follow to this day. Joe told me, you know, Richard, don't ever forget where you came from, and always make sure that you use your law degree to help those that are less fortunate, those without a voice, and the disadvantaged, and fight for your clients' rights in every single case. You know, don't let a judge intimidate you or opposing counsel intimidate you. You hold your own ground, and I'll never forget those words that Joe told me back then. Joe, I'm just glad we're friends. I'm glad that we met back when I was in law school, and that you were my role model back then, and that you continue to be my role model today.
When I was a prosecutor and he was representing his clients, there was always some kind of a personal connection with the client and Joe or Joe's family. I noticed when I became a judge and he would represent clients on sentencings, again, he would always bring out the fact that he had a personal connection, unlike another lawyer who will remain nameless, who would always present me with the defendant's family opening Christmas presents around the Christmas tree. Finally, just snapped and started looking back at previous sentencings, and it was always the same family and the same kids around the same Christmas tree. But that was never Joe's issue. Joe always had individual, personalized connections that worked well with his clients. I want to congratulate Joe and the entire Gamez family on this 50-year milestone. Well deserved, should be celebrated. I'm very sorry that I can't be there due to a prior commitment, but please celebrate, enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you, Joe, and to another 50.
I've known Joe for 45 of his 50-year legal career. Back in the old days, Joe did a lot of criminal work, and so I knew Joe as an assistant criminal district attorney. And then when I took the bench in 1987, I would see Joe both on criminal and civil cases back then. I've had him in my courtroom on a number of occasions, seen him trying to help people up and down the line, and we got to be friends, and he's built one of the most successful law practices in San Antonio. Helps a lot of people along the way. Joe is not a prideful person, but he has every right to be proud of what he and Carmen have done and what they've built and the success that they've had. Just want to say, Joe, thanks for being my friend for all these years. Thanks for all the times you've made me laugh. I congratulate you on your 50 years. I congratulate you on your success. And I thank you for all the good that you've done in our community.
One day, Joe walked into my office and said, "Daniel, I have a series of cases that I want you to look at, but I want the Johnny Gonzalez rate." That meant he wanted a higher forwarding fee because Johnny and I were associates together at the law firm of Tinsman and Hauser at the time, before it was Tinsman and Ciano. And I said, "Joe, let me see your cases." He brought 30 of them, put them on the table. I looked through them and I says, "You get the Johnny Gonzalez rate." And that was the beginning of our business relationship. It can be a hurricane. There can be lightning. Tornadoes are coming. Joe looks and says, "It's gonna be all right when it's all over with." He's just one of those guys, and he makes you smile. He calls me more often than my children, more often than my mother did. I never end a conversation without Joe Gamez fights. I'll call Joe and say, "You don't have enough signs. There are only 29 signs on Pan America in the 12-mile area, and I just didn't see enough. Would you add one more sign?" It is a brutal practice. It beats up your life, it beats up your liver, it beats up your family. And Joe has seemed to be able to work that process through and develop in his own life and stay happy and stay engaged with his family. He's got Joseph, he's got the whole herd of them working at the office. And he still does it with that big smile on his face. I've only made it 43 years, so I'm trying to catch up to you, Joe, but you keep getting ahead of me.
The first time I met Mr. Gamez, I was still in law school. I was going to the courthouse, my very first time here in Bexar County presiding, and I saw Mr. Gamez. I swear he was running to a hearing. The man was just constantly working. He's constantly busy. He walks this very fine line between humility and confidence. And I've never seen someone walk that line quite as well as he does. It isn't about the gimmicks, it isn't about the big numbers, it's about community. It's about helping people. He's a humble man, and it's what I aspire to be like. I hope that in my career, if after all the accolades and accomplishments, which I hope to attain, if after all of that, if I can be even half the humble guy that Mr. Gamez is, I would count myself a very lucky and fortunate man. I knew from the moment that I started interning here that this is a firm that I wanted to be a part of. I knew the firm was going in this direction where it was gonna surpass most Hispanic firms here in the city, and we've done that. This is all fostered by Mr. Gamez's vision and Mr. Gamez's determination and his drive. 50 years from now, I see the law firm still standing for the things that Mr. Gamez so firmly believes in, helping the community, helping anyone who's in need, fighting for the people that need to be fought for, and being the voice for the people that can't speak up. And Mr. Gamez, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity from right out of law school. You didn't have to do that, and you did. And I appreciate you and Mrs. Gamez for everything y'all have done. Thank you.